It's your tour guide around the SWAC BBall.
How long the tour bus, so let's go. Wednesday and Sunday out when you can take the tour.
Hop on now, we starting out. Texas land, the Panthers shout. Tigers roar in deserts drought. What's that whisper? Ain't no doubt. Next to Boot got Jags to see. More tigers prowling, making others flee. Arkansas, a quick short spree. Golden Lions, they run free.
How long the tour bus, so let's go. Wednesday and Sunday out when you can take the tour.
We love the sip, so we raising cheers. Delta doubles fueling fears. Braves and Tigers through the years. Echo loud in crowded spheres. Swing through Bama, hear them call. Hornets buzzing, stand up tall. Bulldogs barking in the hall. Feel the rhythm break or fall. Sunshine State, we ending last. Rattlers creeping, moving fast. Join the chorus, make it blast. Cats past and future, hold it fast. SWAC stories on the stage. Every chapter turning page.
All right, everybody, what's going on, man? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk, the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. And of course, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC BBall coming at you. And we're going to continue this little series that we're doing from now to the end of the season, where we kind of take a look at the standings of SWAC and SWAC men's and women's basketball, and kind of look at the scenarios and see what's shaping up. And we coming toward the end of the season, we got basically 2 or 3 games left, depending on the teams. So we don't have a lot of time left. We got 3 days of SWAC basketball left: Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. So the season is wrapping up. SWAC tournament will be starting in Atlanta right after that. Then there's the NCAA tournament and everything. So we got all that basketball coming at you. We also got spring football going to be kicking off in a lot of places. So we're going to kind of touch on that. And looking at any other thing that comes down the pipe. So with that being said, man, y'all make sure y'all hit those socials. Facebook is SWAC Talk, Instagram SWAC Talk, Twitter SWAC Talk 76. Like the video, comment, and share your thoughts on the on everything that's going on right now. In the SWAC world, like I said, we also got baseball, softball, track and field. I mean, if you're a sports fan, this is probably the best time for you, because there's everything going on to some degree. And so you got an opportunity to kind of get in where you fit in and talk about what you want to talk about. So with that being said, man, we're gonna go ahead and jump directly into this, because we got to cover men's basketball and women's basketball. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into this. We're gonna start off with the women's portion of things, and it's an interesting race on both sides. Just there's tight things on the men's side and the women's side, but we're gonna start off with the women's standings first. Southern's right now at 4-2, 14-2 in conference, 16-13 overall. They've won 7 games in a row. Alabama A&M is 13-3, 20-8 overall. They won 5 games in a row. Texas Southern is 13-4, 14-14 overall. They've lost 2 games in a row. Jackson State 12-4, 14-13 overall. They won 1. Grambling 10-6, 13-14 overall. They won 2 games in a row. Alcorn 9-7, 11-16 overall. They won 3 games in a row. Prairie View 6-11, 9-17 overall. They've lost 1. FAMU 6-11, 9-19 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. Bethune-Cookman 6-11, 9-20 overall. They've lost 3 games in a row. Alabama State 4-12, 6-22 overall. They lost 3 games in a row. Valley 4-12, 5-22 overall. They won 1. And Pine Bluff 1-15, 3-23 overall. They've lost 8 games in a row. So let's go ahead and break down these standings and see what we shape up with 2 games. Everybody has 2 or 1 game left in the season. So this is it for the women's side. They picked back up in action on Thursday with 4 games, and then Saturday there's 6 games. So 10 games left of SWAC women's basketball, and so we are in the crunch time, and we're gonna really start to kind of flesh out some of these races. But starting at number 12 with Pine Bluff, they are 1-15, so they trail the 10th spot by 3 games, and they only have 2 games left. So there's no way that they can catch up. Um, so they are eliminated. So we won't even really worry about them. But they finish up with Texas Southern on Thursday. Excuse me, they finish up with Jackson State and Alcorn this upcoming weekend. So they don't have a lot of games left. They're out, so we're not really going to really worry about them. We do have a race for the 10th spot right now. Valley is 4-12. They're coming off of a victory over Pine Bluff, which gave them the season series. They won that game by um, they won that game by 29, I think, and they had lost to them by 28. So they won that series by a +1 point differential. But they trail Bama. They're tied with Bama State, but they trail the season series by 4 points. They lost to they have a 4 point differential to Bama State. So right now they need to win out and have Bama State lose out to avoid any kind of a tie. So like I said again, they close out. Um, what's the order they close out? They close out on Thursday with Alcorn at home on Thursday, and then Saturday Jackson State at home. So those are 2 tough games. Both of those teams are in the mix for a decent seed. So they need to win one of those two, and have Bama State lose out, which is always possible. And then they will get that 10th seed. So looking at the Hornets, they're coming off of a loss to Alabama A&M, and they close out at Southern on Thursday and at Grambling on Saturday. So again, 2 teams who are in the top 5. Number 5 Grambling and number 1 Southern. Um, they have a tough closeout, and so they're gonna have to either not if they lose both these games, they need Valley to lose both of those games. They need to finish in a tie with Valley um, to advance, unless they win at least one game and have Valley lose both of their games. So basically, a win and 2 Valley losses gives Bama State the 10 seed. Win out. It doesn't matter what Valley does, but winning out is going to be tough against 2 teams that have already beat you once. So and you're playing them on the road this time, so they have a pretty tough finish as well. But they seem to be pretty solidly in that 10th spot. Like I said, if Valley steals a win against the number 6 or the number 14, they could jump them. But right now, Bama State seems like they will be in the 10th spot because both these teams are going to be underdogs in all 4 of those games. So I think that Bama State right now has a pretty decent hold on that 10th spot. We have a tie for 7th place right now. Bethune-Cookman is 9th in that spot because they don't have any tiebreakers over anybody that's tied with them. They trail FAMU right now by 8 points. They do play them on Saturday, and they lost the season series to Prairie View. So that's what puts them at the 9th spot. And then, like I said, they have FAMU coming up. That's a good, if they beat them by 9, then, they win the season series. But there's no way that they're probably going to finish tied with FAMU. If they beat FAMU, they're going to finish 7-11. If they lose to FAMU, they're going to finish 6-12. So the winner of the FAMU Bethune game is probably going to get the 7th spot, unless Prairie View can pull off an upset over Texas Southern, which would then put if Prairie View finishes tied with FAMU at 7-11, they would be the 8th spot and FAMU would be 7th spot. They finish tied with Bethune at 7-11. Prairie View will get the 7th spot. Bethune will get the 8th spot. FAMU will be 9. So this FAMU Bethune game is going to determine basically three spots. That still doesn't rule out If Bethune, whoever loses that Bethune game, and if Prairie View loses their game, and Bama State finds some kind of way to win 2 games and finishes at 6-12, then we're gonna have another tie to deal with. But right now, that's a little far fetched. So really, the most straightforward way is the winner of the FAMU Bethune game is gonna finish at 7-11. The loser is gonna finish at 6-12. Prairie View, they beat TSU, they're gonna be 7-11. They lose to TSU, they're gonna be 6-12. So Prairie View has the opportunity to be 7-7 if they win and tie with Bethune-Cookman. They're gonna be 8 if they lose and FAMU wins. So there's still a little bit of wiggle room, but there's almost those spots are kind of pretty cemented. I don't really see anybody. There's no way that anybody can drop down to where those teams are at. So those 3 teams are gonna battle it out for the 7, 8, 9 spot. Most likely they're gonna probably finish the way they are now. FAMU lost a couple tight games this week, so they're looking to rebound, and like I said, they did beat Bethune once already, but now they got to go do it on the road. So we'll see how that goes. But right now, it's pretty straightforward. So it's not as difficult as it looks because those 2 teams play each other, which is going to clear up a spot. So we're either going to have a tie for 7th or we're going to have a tie for 8. And then that's pretty much the way that goes. So that's pretty simple. Number 6 is Alcorn. They trail Grambling by 1 game, and they do have 2 games left. They at Valley and then at Pine Bluff next weekend. So they have 2 very winnable games. They did lose the Valley at home by 4. So they they need to win that game just to keep pace with Grambling. Grambling does have a pretty tough game on Thursday night. So if Grambling loses and Alcorn wins, then they're tied at 10-7 at that point. Alcorn did lose to Grambling, so they would lose the tiebreaker to Grambling in that aspect. Grambling would then get Alabama State to close out the season, and Alcorn will get Pine Bluff. And again, these 2 teams are finished. If they finish tied at 11-7, Grambling gets the 5 spot because they by virtue of winning the tiebreaker. If Grambling loses 1 game and Alcorn if Grambling loses both games, they're 10-8. Alcorn would get the 5 spot then by jumping them. Any kind of tie goes Grambling's way. And that's what makes Alcorn such a frustrating team. They're 9-7, but they've beaten Southern. They've beaten Jackson State. They've beaten Texas Southern. They beat 3 of the top 4 teams in the conference, but they've also lost to Valley. They lost to Bethune. They've lost some games to some teams that are not better than them. So they lost to Prairie View. So they've lost games that they shouldn't have lost, but they've won games that they probably shouldn't have won, and that's what makes them a team that is an enigma, and that's what makes them a dangerous team in the tournament, especially in the first round. You draw this team in the first round, you could get sent home. At Southern last season, they drew Alcorn and got sent home. So they're a team that's plays up and down, and if you're facing them in the tournament, you're hoping they're playing down, but they seem to play up when they play the teams that are ahead of them. So that's what makes them a dangerous team. Grambling, like I said, they're number 5 right now, and they have a pretty solid hold on that. I don't really see anybody dropping down to them because Texas Southern only has 1 game left, and Jackson State have 2 games that they probably should win. So right now, I think Grambling is pretty solidly in the 5 spot. The only way they drop from 5 is if they lose both of their games or Alcorn wins both of their games. Then they would be 10-8, Alcorn would be 11-7, and then they would be 6 and Alcorn would be 5. So Grambling is pretty solidly in their 5 spot. There's not a lot of room for them to move up or down. They do have a tough game on Thursday against Alabama A&M, so they did lose to them by 12 in the first matchup, so they would have to beat them by 13 to win the tiebreaker. It's not really going to affect any kind of season series with any kind of seeding between those 2 teams, but A victory over Alabama A&M, and then a victory over Bama State would put Grambling at 12-6, and locked into that 5 spot no matter what Alcorn does. So it's simple for Grambling. You win out, you get the 5 spot. You split, you probably still get the 5 spot, because Alcorn is most likely going to win out. And then you lose both games, then you're going to be 6th. So it's pretty simple for Alcorn, for Grambling, and it's simple for Alcorn. They can't. Neither one of those teams can go below 6. So, like I said, we have most of our spots from 5 to 10 pretty much settled. There is a little bit of wiggle room for 10 and 11, but not a lot. And there's a little wiggle room for 6, 7, and 8, but not a lot. And the same thing with 5 and 6. Just a little more interesting as we get to the top 4. Right now, Jackson State is 12-4. They're fourth spot. They got Pine Bluff on Thursday, Valley on Saturday. So they should win both of those games, finish at 14-4. If they finish tied with Texas Southern, they lose the season series by 12 points. So even though they beat TSU on Saturday, they still lose the season series. So if they finish tied with Texas Southern, then they would finish in the 4th spot right now. But there is a very interesting scenario ahead of them, and we'll get to that in a second. But like I say, Jackson State, they should win out and finish 14-4. Obviously, they can't finish no lower than 4th. They could still finish in a big logjam tie for second, or in a tie for first, depending on what happens in these other games. But right now, they're 4th. Texas Southern 13-4. They have Prairie View left. They win that game on the road. They're 14-4. Again, if they finish tied with Jackson State, they would be 3 at this in this scenario. Jackson State would be 4. If they got upset by Prairie View, which is not impossible, because Prairie View beat Jackson State this week, they would be 13-5, and if Jackson State won out, they would be 14-4. So they would be the 4th spot. Jackson State would be the 3 spot. Also, Alabama and them is 13-3, so they're not, they're only a game ahead of those guys, and a game and a half ahead of these teams. They play Southern on Saturday, so that's a big game for both sides. If they drop that game to Southern and they beat Grambling, they're 14-4 as well, and that would be basically a 3-way tie for second place. And they would actually lose a 3-way tiebreaker, because they don't have any tiebreakers over Texas Southern, which they lost 1-0, and they lost to Jackson State 1-0. So they would actually be the 4th team, the 4th spot out of those 2 teams. That Texas Southern would be 2, and Jackson State would be 3. So they, Alabama and them, if they want to stay at 2, they need to win out, and that made them 15-3. If Southern, and let's go ahead and throw Southern in this too, because all this hinges together. Southern 13-2 right now with Bama State on Thursday. Alabama and them on Saturday. Southern beats Alabama State. They're 14-2. If they beat Alabama and them, they're 16-2. I mean, they're 14-2 right now. If they beat Alabama State, they're 15-2, and then they lose to Alabama, and then they're 15-3, which would put them in a tie with the Bulldogs. If the Bulldogs beat Grambling and then obviously beat Southern and finish at 15-3, Bama A&M will have to beat Southern by 7 points to win their tiebreaker. If Southern wins both of these games, they're 16-2, and they win the regular season pretty much outright. So a win for Southern guaranteed. A win for Southern on Thursday guarantees them a share of the regular season championship. Win out, you automatically the 1 seed. If you split with Bama A&M and they beat you by 5 or less, then you still get the 1 seed by virtue of the tiebreaker. So Southern is in a pretty good spot. They win on Thursday, then they control their destiny for the overall regular season. Alabama and them, like I said, if they split those games, they're going to finish at 14-4, and that will put them in a log jam with those other 2 teams if they both win out. and they would drop all the way to 4 because of the tiebreakers. If they go 2-0 and and Southern goes 0-2, then they would be 15-3. Southern they would be 15-3, and Southern would be 14-4, which would put Southern in a three-way tie with those other two teams. And Southern actually wins the tiebreaker over Jackson State and TSU, so they would be the 2 spot in that scenario. So Southern really can't go below 2, no matter what happens. Um, and at best they can be 1. Same thing for Alabama. And the best they can do is 1, but they can drop all the way down to 4. So they have a lot on the line in these last couple games. And for them, it starts with Grambling. Grambling's no pushover. They're 10-6 right now. They're playing solid basketball. They kind of found their footing, and so we kind of got an idea of who's what. We pretty much know who's in the tournament. Um, like I said, those 2 games for Bama State, they need to win at least one of them. They win one, they're 15-13, they're 5-13. Valley, they lose out, then they're 4-14, so they will automatically be the 10 spot. So we pretty much know who we have in the tournament, and we kind of know the order of teams. But right now, if things went the way they went, if the like they like to say, if the season ended today, your playing games will be FAMU against Alabama State and Prairie View against Bethune-Cookman. And then the winner of the FAMU Alabama State game will play Alabama A&M. The winner of the Bethune Prairie View game will play Southern. Texas Southern will play Alcorn, and Jackson State will play Grambling. That's if everything's started right now. Obviously, there's going to be some movement because we still have some games, very important games between teams that are in basically touching range of each other. So we're going to have some movement on this side. And so it's not as convoluted as it looks. It's actually more simple than it seems, and that makes it a whole lot easier to deal with. Now, moving on to the men's side, things get a little bit more interesting. It's still kind of tight, but it's still a little bit more ways to look at it. We'll start off first and foremost by looking at the standings for the men's side of things, and we'll go from there. Right now, Southern is sitting on top of the men's side. They're 14-2, 18-9, I believe. Let me get this right. Right now, Southern is let's see. Right now, they're 14-2. Excuse me, they're 13-2, 18-10 overall. They still have 3 games left. Jackson State is 11-4, 11-17 overall. They won 3 games in a row. Southern lost. Southern had a winning streak snap. Bethune-Cookman 11-5, 14-15 overall. They won 3 games in a row. Bama State 10-6, 14-15 overall. They won 1. FAMU 10-6, 13-14 overall. They won 1. Texas Southern 10-6, 13-16 overall. They've lost 1. Alcorn 9-6, 9-19 overall. They won 1. Grambling 6-9, 9-19 overall. They've lost 2 in a row. Alabama A&M 6-10, 10-19 overall. They lost 1. Prairie View 4-12, 5-24 overall. They've lost 1. Pine Bluff 3-13, 6-23 overall. They won 1. And Valley 1-15 and 3-26 overall. They've lost 7 in a row. And what we're gonna do with the men's side, kind of like we did like we did last week, we'll kind of look at how teamrankings.com has the race finishing out. They do projections, and so we'll project each team's final record and look at it that way. So starting off at the bottom, Valley, they're 1-15. They only have 2 games left. They can't catch Prairie View even if they won out. So Valley is X'd out. So we don't have to worry about them no more. Pine Bluff is still in the mix. They're 3-13. They're off on Monday. They get Alcorn and Jackson State to close out the season. They're 3-13. They got 2 games left. they have an interesting tiebreaker scenario with Purdue. If they were to split their two games and go 4-14, and Purdue lost their last two games, which are Jackson State and Texas Southern, and finished at 4-14. Pine Bluff would win the season series because they would win the tiebreaker because they won the tiebreaker over Purdue by virtue of their victory over Texas Southern. These teams split the season series. They both won. They both won that game by 11 points. They both won by the same exact score. Not that that matters in the scenario, but that's just an interesting tidbit to me. But they both won by 11, so there's no point differential, which moves to the next tiebreaker, which is record against the teams ahead of them, working down, and so they have a victory over Texas Southern, which will put them ahead of Purdue. So Pine Bluff go 1-1, and Purdue wins out. They get the 10 spot. If some kind of way they win out and Purdue loses their last two games, they get the 10 spot. If they lose out, it doesn't matter what Purdue does. So Pine Bluff pretty much controls their own destiny in this situation. You win out, you're good. You win out and Purdue loses out, you're good. If you finish tied with Purdue, it's all good for you because you got the tiebreaker. So they do have that in their pocket, but they have to pick up those wins on Thursday and Saturday. Same thing for Purdue. If they can win out, then they would be 6-12 and be in without worrying about Pine Bluff. But Purdue is a team that's only won once since January 13th or so. So it's tough to say that they're gonna go to Jackson and win and then beat TSU at home. But they're gonna have to if they want to comfortably get in. If they lose both of those games, they're gonna need Pine Bluff to lose both of their games. There's just no real way around it. So they don't have as much margin for error because of that tiebreaker that they trail Pine Bluff in. So they need to win, which is kind of asking a lot for a team who hasn't really played good basketball down the stretch. Really not even down the stretch. They haven't really played good basketball since the first 4 games of the season. So they really are in a tough spot. But they could just hold on to that by virtue of Pine Bluff having a tough closeout as well against two teams that already beat them. So we'll see how that goes. Number 9 is Alabama A&M. They're off on Monday, but they get Grambling. They get Grambling and Southern to close out the season. This team is an enigma. They're more than capable of playing with anybody, but then they can have games like they had on Saturday where Alabama State just really thumped them really, really badly. And so that was a team that they lost to by 4 in their first matchup, and then they just got the brakes beat off of them. So you never really know what you're going to get from A&M, and that could be one of those situations that puts you in a predicament where they could easily lose out and finish at 6-12. They do have the tiebreaker over Purdue. If some kind of way Purdue was to go 6-12, they do have that tiebreaker. That game against Grambling coming up on Thursday is important. They trail Grambling by 11 in the tiebreaker, but they're 1 game behind. They're half game behind Grambling, but they trail them by 11 in the tiebreaker. So they would need to win by 12 in Grambling to be able to basically jump the Tigers. They go 8-10 if they win out. They can't move above 8. So they're pretty much locked into the 9 spot. It's going to take some work for them to get above the 8, get above 9. So right now they're pretty much locked into the 8 spot, to the 9th spot. If they beat Grambling, that can kind of maybe, put them toward 8, depending on how that tiebreaker goes. But if they lose to Grambling, they're 6-11. And then it doesn't even matter what Grambling does at the end of the season because Grambling will be 7-9. Grambling will be 7-9, and then 8-9. Let's go back because Grambling has a third game. Grambling has Bethune-Cookman on Monday, so If they lose to Bethune, they're 6-10. They're tied with A&M. They're still ahead of them because of the tiebreaker. If Groundland beats A&M, they're 7-10, and that drops A&M to 6-11, and so they will still be in the 8th spot. And then it wouldn't matter what they did against Bama State to close out the season. If Groundland beats Bethune-Cookman, they're 7-9, and then if they beat Alabama A&M, they would be 8-9, and so then it still wouldn't matter. So they are pretty much Groundland's pretty much in a good spot. If they win against Bethune on Monday and then beat A&M on Thursday, they're 8-9, and the worst they could finish is 8-10, and they would have a tiebreaker over Alabama A&M. So Groundland's pretty much in that 8th spot. Like it's going to take some real fancy footwork to get them out of that 8th spot. They can't move above 8. And they really can't. It really gonna take some work for them to move to 9. So Groundland's pretty much in that 8th spot. Alabama is pretty much in that 9th spot. Purview pretty much in that 10th spot. Barring Pine Bluff getting hot at the end of the season. Looking at how these 4 teams are projected to finish, Valley's projected to finish at 1-17, 3-30 overall. Pine Bluff predicted to finish 4-14 and 6-24 overall. Purview predicted to finish 4-14 and 5-25 overall. Groundland, Alabama predicted to finish 6-12, 10-21 overall. Groundland's predicted to finish 8-10, 10-11-20 overall. And so that's pretty much that bottom group. And now we get into the weeds of these teams that have 5 and 6 losses. This is where things get a little bit more interesting and a little bit more tougher to look at. Alcorn is 9-6. They trail at 3-team tie for 4th place by half a game. They get Texas Southern on Monday, and then they close out with Valley and Pine Bluff. This game on Monday is huge. You lose that game, you drop to 9-7, and then you win out, you're 11-7, and you're probably gonna finish tied with somebody in front of you if one of those teams drops a game. So you still have an opportunity to finish tied for like 5th or so. But right now, if you go 3-0, you're 12-6, and you're smack dab in all that rigmarole right there. So it's kind of tough to forecast where this is going to go because a lot of teams in front of them are going to have to move around. But the Braves right now, they're 7th, but they're probably not going to finish there. They could probably finish upwards to, depending on what happens to the teams 4, 5, and 6, and even 3. They can finish anywhere from probably 3 to 7. We have to kind of really dive into this a lot deeper on Monday once a little bit more smoke clears. FAMU is 10-6. They got Southern and then Bethune on Saturday. Southern on Monday, Bethune on Saturday. Went out, you finished 12-6. You're in a pretty decent spot, at least 4th place. You lose both of those games, you're 10-8, and then who knows where you at. Texas Southern, same thing. Alcorn on Monday, Purview on Saturday. You win both of those games, you're 12-6. You split those games, you're 11-7. You're smack dab in the middle of everything. If some kind of way you lose both of those games, you're 10-8, and then you could be 7th place. So there's a lot. There's just a lot with no motion that really going to happen right now. It's really tight and really confusing. Bama State also 10-6. They're off on Monday. They get Southern on Thursday. Grambling on Saturday. They did beat Southern by 1 in Montgomery, so they do at least have that as a go by. But if they win both of those games, they're 12-6. And depending on what Bethune-Cookman does, they could be looking at the top for 3rd place. So there's still so much movement here. It's still a lot more crowded than the women's side. It's not as concrete as the women's side. And so that's why all of this is just really a big logjam that hasn't cleared up much at all seem like every game it gets worse. Looking at where these teams are projected to finish, FAMU's projected to finish at 10, 11 and 7, 14 and 15 overall. Alabama State's projected to finish at 11 and 7, 15 and 16 overall. Alcorn is predicted to finish at 11 and 7 as well, 11 and 20 overall. And Texas Southern's predicted to finish 11 and 7, 14 and 14 and 17 overall. So they're predicting a four-way tie with these guys tied for fourth place in a four-way tie. And looking at that, you got a whole bunch of different tiebreakers to break down, and it would be really, really, really interesting. Alcorn, like I said, just right now, I don't even want to try to work all that mess out, but they're projecting a four-way tie for fourth place at this point. Bethune-Cookman could also kind of muddy that up if they lost their last two games against Grambling and FAMU, which would put them at 11 and 7. FAMU split their two games; they are again 11 and 7. If FAMU wins both of those games and Bethune lose, then FAMU would be 12 and 6 and at least third place. So it's so ugly, and that still doesn't count out Jackson State. They're 11 and 4. They have 3 games left. They should win all 3 games. They should be favored in all 3 games. So if you're looking at it that way, they went out. They're 14 and 4. They're the number 2 team. At that point, if they drop a game and they finish at 13 and 5, they're still ahead of everybody except for Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman went out, but they beat Bethune-Cookman, so they would still be the 2 spot. If they do anything worse than 13 and 5, they go 14 and 4, which would mean, they go 12 and 6. That would throw them in that log jam. But I don't, like I said, with the finish that they have, I don't see them finishing worse than second place. So they're pretty much stuck in that 2 spot. The only way they can move up one is if Southern loses their last 3 games and finishes at 13 and 5, and they went out and finished at 14 and 4. That's the only way that they can finish first and win the regular season. If they finish tied with Southern at 14 and 4, they lose the tiebreaker because Southern beat them in that only matchup. So for Jackson State to win the regular season, they need Southern to lose all 3 games, and they need to win all 3 games. For Southern, it's simple. Even with the loss last night, it's you still 13 and 2. You still have a 2-game lead over Jackson State. You have a 3-game lead over Bethune, and you have a 4-game lead over everybody else. So you're Southern. The only 2 teams that really can hurt you are Bethune and Jackson. And Bethune can only hurt you if you lose out and they win out. But you have the tiebreaker over them, so you still, they really can't pass you no matter what. So Southern is probably at worst can finish second in the league, which for the season they've had, that would be a disappointment. But at worst, Southern can finish in second. At best, they can finish first, whether that's 14 and 4 or some kind of 13 and 5 tie. If it was a 13 and 5 3-way tie, I think Southern would get that and get the first place spot like that. But right now, Southern can finish as low as 2 if they lose out. If they win at least one of these games, they win the regular season in the 1 spot, whether it's through a tie outright. So this game Monday for Southern is big. Number 1 is big because you always want to go at least 1-1 on the road, and so you want to have that bounce back victory. It's not going to be easy. Their next 2 games are tough. You be playing basically the number 6 and the number 4 team right now. So these are basically tournament games. These are teams that you're probably going to play in the second round of the tournament if you make it past the first round. And nothing's concrete in this conference. So right now Southern, they have to win. They need to go at least for them to get the 1 seed, they have to go 1-2 in their last 3 games. You don't want to see a finish like that if you're a Southern fan, but that to me is your best. That to me is the worst case scenario for you to get the 1 seed. If you go 0-3 in that, then you could finish. You could finish second. So one win for Southern gives them the 1 seed, and it is pretty simple. So looking at how these last four, where do we stop? These last 3 teams are predicted to finish the season. Bethune predicted to finish 12 and uh, 13-5. They predict to finish 16-16 overall. Jackson State predict to finish 14-4, 14-17 overall. Southern predicted to finish 15-3, 20-11 overall. So they're pretty much predicting Southern to drop one of their last 3 games, but still winning the regular season. Southern has a 99% chance of winning the conference. They have a 33% chance of winning the tournament. Bethune-Cookman has a 14% chance of winning the tournament. Jackson State 16%. Texas Southern still has a 10% chance of winning the tournament. Alabama State is 9%. Alcorn 5%. Florida A&M basically 5%. Groundland 4%. So everybody from 1 through 8 has at least a 4% chance of winning the tournament per teamrankings.com. I mean, obviously that's not an exact science, but that's a pretty wide open tournament when you look at it, because you look at some tournaments, just for example, like you look at the Southland, McNeese has a 77% chance of winning the tournament, and then they only have 4 other teams with more than a 2% chance of winning. So this is a wide open tournament, and so that's something that you want to kind of keep tabs on. And also, like I did on Sunday, I want to do on Monday. I think I did it Monday. I wanted to give y'all some teams of interest, because the SWAC is most likely gonna be in that first 4, 16-16 matchup. The team who have been coming up the most is American. Right now, they're in the Patriot League. They're 13-5 right now, 19-12 overall. They're predicted to finish their season at 13-5, which I think they finished their regular season now. They have a 49% chance of winning the conference, but with Bucknell basically also being tied with them. They have a 20% chance of winning the tournament, so they don't necessarily have the greatest chance of winning for a number 1 team. And one key factor for the Patriot League tournament is that they play at home sites. So if they don't get the number 1 spot, then they have to go on the road at some point to win in their tournament. And that could be detrimental to a team if you haven't, you have to go play the number 1 team on their floor. That could be detrimental. Right now, their tournament actually starts on March 4th. So what's that? Today is the 2nd, 3rd. So their tournament starts on Tuesday. So we'll find out, where they end up and how they end up, really, really quickly. The winner of that tournament, regardless, is probably going to be in the first 4. So whoever that is probably going to be a team that you should keep eyes on. But right now, they are the team that's been projected to be that spot. But also, we're going to throw Bucknell in the mix, because they're also 13-5 in conference. Let's see where they were. They're also 13-5, and their overall record right now is 17-14. American is 19-12. Bucknell has a 50% chance of winning the conference and a 40% chance of winning the tournament. So they probably are. I would honestly say they are probably the team out of the 2 that you should probably pay closer attention to, because the odds and projections are favoring them more than anything else. But Colgate also has a 16% chance of winning the tournament. They're 10-8 in conference. So they seem to have been a team that probably has had some success on the road. And so that's another outside team that you might want to look at if you're just kind of keeping tabs on things. In Ohio Valley, that's another league that we have had some connections with. Southeast Missouri, they're 15-5. They've won the conference. They're 15-5, 20 and 11 overall. 2011 overall. They have a 33% chance of winning the tournament. Um, SIU Edwardsville also has a 27% chance of winning the tournament. One thing to kind of take note of, and I want to see, there are some teams that won't be able to qualify for the NCAA tournament because of transitions to D1. Um, I want to see if I can find those teams. So, because some of those teams are going to be factors in this. Um, let's see. All right. Let's see. In Ohio Valley, SIU Edwardsville, they are eligible to make it. So they are another team who kind of you want to look out for because they right there with Southeast Missouri. They're 13-7, but they have a 27% chance of winning the tournament. So also Little Rock is at 16%. Tennessee State is at 13%. That's another team we'll keep our eye out on. HBCU, maybe get another HBCU in the tournament, get three. So that's somebody to look out for. This tournament seems to be kind of wide open, but more top heavy. The Ohio Valley tournament starts on Wednesday, March 5th. So it starts on Wednesday, ends on Saturday. So that's another tournament to look out for this week. They play in Evanston, Indiana, starting on March 5th. Um, Also, we want to keep a lookout on is Omaha in the Summit League. Um, the Mavericks, they are right now they're 13-3, and so they have won the regular season. They have won the regular season. They're 19-12 overall. They have a 9% chance of winning the tournament. So even though they won the regular season, they're not they're not anywhere near a favorite to win the tournament. St. Thomas has a 26% chance of winning it, but they're not eligible. I think they're still in their their D1 transition, so they can't make the tournament. Even if they win, which would put the runner up in the tournament. So that's something to keep an eye out on in that tournament. South Dakota State has a 29% chance of winning the tournament. Um, they're 11-5 and 20-11 overall, and also North Dakota State has a 21% chance of winning the tournament. They're 10-6 and 21-10 overall. So there's three teams that you probably want to keep a lookout on. It's going to be interesting to see if Omaha can survive because they won the regular season, but they are nowhere near favorites to win the tournament, and so that's an interesting scenario for a team that could not make it. Also, we have let's see, just to throw it out there, when does their tournament start? Their tournament starts on March 5th through the 9th. So their tournament starts on Wednesday. No, on Tuesday. Um, that Tuesday. But their tournament starts on March 5th. I got my days all messed up. They play in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. So that tournament is from March 5th to March 9th. So that tournament will be going on this week, and we'll know who that team is going to be by the time the SWAC finishes their season on Saturday, March 8th. Next, we have the Mid Atlantic Conference, the MAC. Quinnipiac, they are projected to finish 16-4, and 19, 20-11 overall. Marist was the team that we had on this list last week. They're projected to finish 14-5 and 22-7. They dropped to 13-4, so they may not win it. Right now, Quinnipiac is the team that look out for this. They have a 69% chance of winning the conference and a 22% chance of winning the tournament. Marist is at 15%, and also Merrimack is at 20%. So there are three teams to kind of look out for in this group. I don't think they have anybody that's on that list that is not the Metro Atlantic. Why I say Mid Atlantic? The Metro Atlantic. They don't have anybody who is ineligible for the tournament. So any of those three teams could be a factor. That tournament starts on March 11th through the 15th in Atlantic City. So the tournament doesn't start till next week. So you have to wait a while for those guys. And the last, I think that might be it. The only other group that we have to kind of look at is the America East. Uh, Bryant right now they lead that conference. They're 13-2 right now. They're projected to finish 14-2, 20-11 overall. Also, Vermont is 12-3, 12 and they're projected to finish 13-3. So right now, Bryant is projected to win this conference. They have a 98% chance of winning it, and they have a 51% chance of winning the tournament, followed by Vermont with 23 and Maine with 12. So they are pretty much the hands down favorites to win the tournament. Um, they're probably the biggest odds of anybody on the group that we looked at. Their tournament starts on March 12th through March 6th. Their tournament starts on March 11th, March 8th through the 15th on campus sites. So that's a big thing for Bryant. If they can win, they get games at home. So that's pretty much where we stand right now. And like I said, we'll be back again on Tuesday to kind of break down what happened on Monday. And then we'll probably drop a video on Friday to break down everything that happened on Thursday. And then Sunday will be our tournament preview because we'll have everything all set. So we only have two more of these, and then we have a tournament preview coming your way. And then we're going to cover the tournament pretty much session by session. Or maybe I'll just do it all one day, whatever. I haven't figured that part out yet, but that's where we stand right now. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells, signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.